go. For those of us that weren't able to jump on tonight. So to start, I wanted to touch on our spring recap. So, like I said, we had an awful lot to really be excited about after the year that was a pandemic, but I think everybody was probably really just ready to look forward, which is, a bit unfortunate because it started off with really an incredible fall, and our girls' high school with state cup championships. With 05s and Tottleben and 02s and O'Rourke and a President's Cup championship with Rami and 03s. And that really kind of, extended into our spring. And on the boys' side, we followed that up with some really exciting stuff. And that was, the 2 state cup championships for our 08s and our 06s. Also with another state cup for our 08 girls. And for us, it's it speaks to, I think, the process that we've been working towards and the process that we've kind of undergone over the past few years to find some consistent success. But for me, the U13s and the 2008s, both on the girls' side and the boys' side, was very significant because that's the year that we started our STAR program. So we started that 5 years ago. And to have them both go out and win a state cup this year was really exciting, and it was really gratifying. So much work has gone into the group, and really that's the age group as a whole, not just the top team that ultimately won the state cup, but the boys throughout, really over the past few years. And whether that's been Red Star players, Blue Star players, and a lot of mix in between, and our staff that has put an incredible amount of effort in there too. It was really exciting to see. And Matt Miller, who you'll hear from later on, who is our director of our coaching and competitions, and also oversees our senior programming 13s through 19s, the owner and author of both of those state cups. So really, I think a big piece for us, and like I said, really weren't able to celebrate it as much as we should, but or should have. But it was a big piece, and I think it speaks to where we're heading as a club and where we want to set our standards, and that's throughout. We certainly want to be a competitive club that's competitive in a consistent way, but also we're focused on the experience and we're focused on the day-to-day, and we want to make sure that we'll touch on it in a little bit, but the understanding that each 90 minutes that our staff gets with our players and with our teams is an opportunity to really kind of make a lasting, memorable impression. And whether that's in training, whether that's in, a video session, or whether that's in a game, those are all moments. And I'm sure that all of you can kind of point back to moments in your youth careers where, you had that, and you had that ability to kind of connect with a coach, and something in there stuck with you, and you never know when that's going to happen. So for us, we've made a lot of new hires, and we've also promoted from within. So there's a real hunger within our staff, which is exciting. And there's a growth mindset, that they want to be better. And we really want to reward that, because I think it's important, because it ultimately filters down to our players, and, fully understand that, you guys are providing us an opportunity, really to share in that, and share in that experience, and have some significant say in what their overall youth experience looks like, and what their overall development looks like, and that's a big deal, and it's not something that we take for granted. So the hires and the titles, I'd point you to our staff page, and there's really too many to kind of go through right now on this call. But I could not be more excited about the staff that we have. And I genuinely believe that it's second to none in the area. And that's the Midwest. I think between the professional aspect of players that are still currently playing professionally, to the experience of the coaches that we have that have been around the club for an awful long time, to, the guys that have invested in this as a career, and the women that are now taking on pretty big strides to showcase themselves as mentors and as leaders within this club. For our young ladies that can look to and stay within this as a career, I think is all very, very encouraging for me. So check out the staff. And I think that, you know, it's a few minutes worth doing. We'll touch on the platforms and our development league, and I'm not going to, you know, I don't want to, you know, go through too much of this with the development league, but it is something that you guys have been a part of in terms of the last few years and where we're going. And development league is just going to be for our younger guys, but it is something that, you know, is important to us, and we feel like providing an experience and providing, you know, a platform at those younger ages for these kids to compete and to go out and try and win games, but also do it in a, you know, a bit of a constructed, controlled environment from the outset, allowing them to fail, encouraging them to fail, to find the right answers, I think is really important for development. And all the science and all of the experts, you know, they kind of encourage the same thing. And I think that, you know, for us, this isn't won or lost. The college scholarship is not won or lost at U10, and neither is a state cup, and neither is an opportunity to play, you know, and represent your city for St. Louis City. It doesn't happen at 9 years old, and we want to make sure that, you know, we provide these avenues so that these kids love the game, and that's a big piece for us. And it extends into, you know, we'll talk about next, which is our addition into MLS Next. So rewinding just a touch. Last spring in 2020, we had the opportunity to be a part of USYS, and had the opportunity to jump into Club v Club, which was a big get for us. It's a big platform to showcase our players. It has ultimately given us opportunities to jump into the pro, which is National League Pro. And then it ultimately, I think, gave us the opportunity to participate in the Girls Academy, which was another step. And they kind of, you know, piggybacked right on top of one another. But all the while, we were shooting for Development Academy. And then that, you know, I think a lot of you guys know what happened to that. It kind of went by the wayside, and MLS picked it up. And when MLS picked it up, you know, I felt like that was a great opportunity for us to jump in and provide another avenue and platform for us to showcase our young athletes. And we were one of 5 clubs to get granted that extension into MLS Next, which was big. And obviously, you know, St. Louis City SC coming into the marketplace, you know, it certainly changes things. It changes the dynamic, but it doesn't change who we are. We are a youth development club, and that's something that we take an awful lot of pride in. And it doesn't change the fact that we are developing kids, whether they are going to go on and be the next Messi or the next Pulisic, or they're going to be a JV soccer player, or they're going to be a college soccer player. Our responsibility is to get them prepared for the next step. And that's what we take very seriously, and what we're going to continue to hang our hat on and make sure that we are great at. So there's an awful lot there, you know, and it extends all the way into what we do for our second teams, for our third teams, for our fourth teams, and making sure that, you know, all of them have opportunities to go out and try and win championships and try and earn those rings and earn those trophies. Our participation in ECNL, in the regional league, which is all really good games. They give our boys avenues to go and earn those games and earn those minutes, and those minutes are meaningful. And when you go back to kind of the bigger picture, in finding ways to, you know, provide meaningful experiences so those lessons can be taught, we feel like they have to be in competitive environments, and they have to find those opportunities to struggle, and then ultimately to pick yourself back up and go and find it again. So our platforms are something that we're going to continue to focus on. And then we'll go through some facility updates, some expectations for players and parents, and then the uniforms. And I wanted to touch on this first, though. This came out of our spring summit with our staff, and I thought it was really powerful, and it spoke to me. And I wanted to share this with you. It's our staff came up with this, and these 2 sentences, I think, say an awful lot about who we are as a club, who we want to be as a club, and where we're going as a club. And it's to reinvest in the service aspect and relish in the idea that we are all in this together. And that's players, parents, coaches, staff, board, and families. And I think that all of those things kind of combine very well. And in order for us to be the club that I think we envision, all individuals and all groups need to be pushing in the same direction. And that's really with any team. When you see successful teams, they're aligned. And that's where we would like to be as a club. And I think that, we're in a very good spot to try and achieve that. So I want to share that with you guys first. And I also wanted to share with you our aspirational pillars. So these are some things that we want to be great at and we want to be the best in. And we feel like if we are able to do this, then the experience essentially will take care of itself. And number one there is the community facilitator. And as a community facilitator, what does that really mean? For us, I think it says an awful lot about, not only having an opportunity to lead here in St. Louis in the Midwest, but the responsibility that comes along with it. And the responsibility that comes along with it is very important. And I don't think that one is different from the other. They are both very intertwined. And I think we'll touch on our network and why that kind of connects into the community and being that facilitator. But we want to support this club, and this starts, and we want to support this community, but it started really with the Fuse's vision, which our mission statement prior to kind of reevaluating a little bit was to positively influence every young athlete in St. Louis. Broad mission, but also one that, we took seriously and tried to achieve. And it has kind of helped us kind of navigate where we're going, but also helped us kind of just envision, I think, a bigger picture. And when you do that with us as the amount of families that we are connected to, the amount of families that we service, whether that's within our own club or within SLISA or SLILA or youth football or whatever those things are, being at our tournaments and in our venues and all of those things. I think that it is a serious responsibility to represent St. Louis in a very significant positive light. But also be, at the forefront of our community and making sure that our kids are seeing this on a day-to-day. In a broad stroke with kind of who we are as a club and what we kind of see as development, we focus on the individual player. Now, this is also not tennis and it's not golf. This is soccer. And there's team development that happens as well. And we want to teach the individual player, which is why we do the IDPs, the individual development plans. Is why we, spend time in focusing on improving and focusing on each individual player, because if we do that, we feel like the team gets better and we feel like that team development will continue to rise if you're able to focus on individuals and pieces of their process. So every player has their own pathway, and it's not a straight line. And there are ups and downs that are going to happen, and we hope that over the course of 15 years with Lou Fuse Athletic, that by the time you finish with us, the next step is a bright one, and the experience kind of within that is something that our coaches and our staff, and something that I put a lot of emphasis on, and that they put a lot of integrity into. So the club development model, we're going to continue to go on with that. And I think that we've shown that over the past 18 months in what we've done with the acquisition of the Girls Academy and then MLS Next, and also Club v Club, and now ECRL, and then continue to find success in MPL and support SLISA and support our local league. So we'll continue on with that, and that will be who we are. I think we're pretty much at a saturation point now. There'll most likely will be some extensions here with MLS Next into some older age groups. That's where our head is at, and I think that this is a big year for us. But then there's also potential that the Girls Academy kind of morphs a little bit. So it's not going to change a ton. But there will be a little bit more development along with our top platforms that we'll probably see over the next year or 2 years. So we'll certainly keep you updated there. But just so you guys know, that's kind of where we are heading. This one for me is something that I think is really important in this professional coaching staff. And I touched on this a lot already, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but I did want to, kind of talk about David Chrisley and our former technical director, that, had an opportunity to coach in the academy with St. Louis City. And it was something that when I first interviewed David, it was really important to him, to continue to feel challenged and continue to work his way up. And we talked about what, originally what his aspirations were and wanted to be a professional coach. And, and that helps me frame my reference when I think about, okay, what does this look like? What does the next 3 years look like? What does the next 4 years look like for you, so that we can put you in a position to succeed? And it leads into our players. And it led into, 11 players on the boys side being promoted into the St. Louis City Academy and at the U16s and U17s. And that's something, like I said, that we are very proud of. And these are players that, have been with the club for a long time and had an opportunity to represent their city. And we supported, and we'll continue to support that. Each player's pathway is different, and it's something that we will never get in anyone's way. We are going to continue to support and give you honest feedback about where we think you're at, what we think your next steps should be or could be, and help you achieve your goals. And that's what I think we believe is our responsibility within this community. So multi-sport excellence. I know that you guys see the lacrosse players. I know that you see the football players, and I think it fits in perfectly with ultimately who we want to be. And we felt like, as a soccer club, we had a big opportunity, but as Lou Fuse Athletic and as a club that has multi-sport excellence, it's parts of the community that we'd be able to speak to and help shape an experience that we weren't necessarily talking to. And it's important for us to continue down that road. And, listen, I'm a soccer guy. I grew up a soccer guy. I played a lot of sports, and I believe in playing a lot of sports. But I had an awful lot of success, and I absolutely love the game of soccer, and we're not going away from that. So that's who we are at our core. But we are branching out in a couple different ways, and that's not going to take over what we do and the emphasis that we put on soccer. We are going to continue with world-class youth sports facilities, though. It's something that we take a lot of pride in, and why we take a lot of pride in it is because we feel like the experience starts from the moment you step onto our complex. And that's a big one for us as we go through this. Those first couple steps, it's really important. And that's why we've invested what we have into the training center, in professionalizing that. And then also what we're doing now with our soccer complex down the road. That was obviously, our first point where all of this started, and to be able to have a facility like the training center, which I do genuinely believe is a real physical representation of what we want to provide to our kids. We want to provide a professional experience. We want to provide a professional opportunity, but we also want to provide them with a vision. And I think it sets the tone. So these are kind of where we're at. Like I said, we touched on our network affiliates a little bit, but that idea comes from being the community facilitator. So we have an interest in being the best club in the Midwest. We don't want to be the biggest club. And I think that there's a pretty big distinction there, which is why we kind of started this network. And the St. Louis Hawks are our first club that we're going to do this with. But it's because we want to support grassroots soccer. So obviously there's a lot there. We are a bigger club. We get afforded opportunities as a bigger club that smaller clubs don't get. But there's a belief within our staff, within our club, that we can do more to support the community. And when we are afforded these opportunities, such as platforms or certain discounts or whatever that is, we are trying as much as we can to support the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into running a smaller club in St. Louis. And the Hawks celebrated their 10th anniversary last year, and for me, I know how much I put into this, and this is my full-time job. And what people do outside in these smaller clubs that have full-time jobs to come in and still provide an experience to kids, to ultimately, I think, help them love the game is really incredibly valuable, and it's selfless. And we'll continue to support the Hawks, obviously, but we'll continue to take a couple more steps into our network and what that affiliate program looks like. And it's for a number of reasons, but it's to support grassroots soccer in St. Louis. Facility updates. So I'm sure that a lot of you guys have seen the 2 new fields at 4 and 5. We put those in right before we hosted the USYS regionals this summer. I'll start at the bottom there with the full Bermuda grass. So we did remove the turf out back here at the training center. So it is Bermuda grass all the way across. But we are now really going to kind of shift our focus. We feel like this training center is at a really good place, and we're going to shift our focus back to the soccer complex. So I'll start there with the big one. Second and third entrances, actually construction began yesterday. So I know that this has been a pain point for everybody. From our parents to our players to our staff, I hear about it all the time. And to be honest, it's one of the first projects that I started on 5 years ago. So to finally now have shovels in the ground and stakes on the ground and an actual, point of completion it's incredibly gratifying and really exciting for us, because I know that everybody that comes to our complex sits for 15-20 minutes getting out of there at our busy times, and that's probably a generous understatement. So I appreciate all of you guys for dealing with it up to this point, and you may see some more kind of slows and lulls in getting out, because there's going to be tractors and there's going to be different things there over the next couple of weeks, but it should be completed within 4 weeks, which we're extremely excited about. And I think that there will be a lot of smiles after that. It's all for a good place to finish up at. Up by the lake house, there will be another entrance exit there. And then down south, right by the tree line at the end of the lake, there will be another entrance exit there. So it's part of a start of what we envision as a bigger picture plan to put some more fields out there, some more parking. Our pie in the sky goal is to get an exit out onto 141, but MoDOT controls those keys, and we don't quite have that yet, but we are very excited to announce this and to get this done. So the other piece that will happen over the next couple of weeks is field 1, our championship field, is going all LED. So that'll be an ongoing process with all of our fields as we'll start to transition from the old halogen to the LED, and we'll go field by field with that. And then we're also adding in parking lot lights, which I think will just increase, the safety around the park and that feeling of comfort, both for our players and for our parents. And I know that, players can get a little risky and run to a car and kind of run through the parking lot, and it can be dark at night. So it'll help, we feel like, with that. And it also, I think, add another layer of attraction just to outside groups, to outside clubs, to outside teams. And it kind of speaks to, I think, the idea of us professionalizing our club and making sure that the experience is first class. So those are some of the capital initiatives on the facility updates. And then I just wanted to touch on a new partner that we have in D1. So D1 is a sports performance partner that you'll start to see around the club. And you'll start to see them kind of included. We've already done some testing. I think they've started with some teams, and they'll continue on with some more, and you're going to start to see them more often. So as you get into these 13s through 19s and these older ages, obviously players, start to play more. They start to learn about how to take care of their body, some quicker than others. And ultimately, bodies start to break down as well. So getting an idea about how to strengthen your body and how to maintain and how to do different things on the speed and agility and the SAQ and all those things, I think is now going to be shifted over to D1. And D1, they are very good at what they do, and I've really enjoyed working with them, and I think that they're going to be another layer that will continue to separate us as a club. It's an exciting time to be a part of Lufuse Athletic, and I think that we're continuing to invest in the experience and ultimately the output for our players. So hopefully you guys see that and you feel it. And I'm going to turn it over now to Matt Miller, who is our DOCC and Director of Senior Programming. But before I do, I just want to touch on these core values. And the anagram here in respect, hard work, enjoyment, excellence, and progress is REAP. And it's kind of a mantra that we live by. You reap what you sow. But these are our pillars, and these are our the points of our philosophy that we kind of point back to when we go through and make decisions and look at what our expectations are. Do they line up with these? Because these are the ones that we try and walk. So Matt, are you available? You ready?
I am. Yep, I'm here.
There he is, Matt Miller.
Trying to balance watching kids and hopping on a Zoom,
As we all are.
Parent, I bet everybody else on this call can relate to that.
Right.
First and foremost, thanks, Dan. And thank you to all of you. Obviously it's a really exciting time to be a part of the Fuse. Dan, I'm super excited about those other entrances that are going in at the soccer complex. I myself sat in a little bit of traffic last night, so I know everybody's appreciative of that. But yeah, no, so thanks for being out here, guys. I think for me, as director of coaching, I have a huge passion for individual player development, and it's one of our pillars and what we try to focus on. And so, how do we support the player? And everybody has that responsibility, whether you are the club that's trying to support and give the player what they need, whether it's you as a parent that tries to support and give the player what they need. And ultimately, we want to, develop players to the best of our ability. And that's both as a soccer player, but ultimately as a person, because at the end of the day, as Dan mentioned before in the presentation, we ultimately want to lift the community, the soccer community, and develop people for the community for years to come. We've sat a lot as a staff and talked about expectations. Not only staff expectations, but also player expectations, parent expectations. And we had a technical team meeting about this, and we put these expectations into buckets, and they come down to responsibility, coachability, and mentality. So we'll look at player expectations first, and then we'll talk about parent expectations. I think for me, there's obviously a few there. We've already touched on the core values. That's obviously very important. When players come to sessions or leave sessions, we try to make sure that we're always touching on those core values. The big one for me is the respect rule. So I was very fortunate to sit in a conference about 10 years ago and listen to Claudio Reyna speak. At the time, he was the director of the U.S. Soccer Development Academy. And one of the things that he talked about that really hit home for myself is trying to elevate the game of soccer, making soccer in the community and across the country the most respectable sport possible. So what can we do from the federation standpoint, the club standpoint, the parent standpoint, the player standpoint, referees, opponents? How can we lift it so that, it's a totally respectable game and everyone respects one another? So I think for us, as when we talk with our players and we get our players together, we talk a lot about that respect. Can the players make sure that they're respecting not only their opponents, but respect referees, respect the opponent coaches, respect their own coaches, respect parents, and really try to develop that respect? It's the first core value of our club, and really trying to make sure we hit home on that. There's a few others here to hit on. I think one that I always talk about is the player journey. Every player, and Dan mentioned it before, is on their unique journey. And it can go in all different areas, but in all different directions. But at the end of the day, the player has to take accountability for it. As you advance into these senior ages, from the ages of U13-U19, it becomes that much more important. Players have to take accountability. So if there's issues, or if things pop up, or playing time's not where they want it to be, or things are confusing, they have to be able to start to speak up and have conversations and communicate. Make sure that they're trying to do what they can so that they can take accountability for their journey, because it is theirs. Little things like greeting your coaches is really important. Within my groups, we try to instill that small detail of saying hello when you come to a session, saying bye and thank you when you're done. It develops that person aspect. From a coaching side, obviously growth mindset. And by growth mindset, we tell the players all the time, it's always an opportunity to learn. Are you listening to your coaches? Do you reflect after practice? Are you educating yourself about the game? I think these are all coachable things that players can begin to instill in themselves, and we try to instill in the players. And then the final piece is mentality. Every training session is a moment, as Dan said, it's 90 minutes to get better. And if you focus, you're intense, you know, and you really focus on those details, you're going to get better. And then the final piece is just enjoyment. You know, the players play this game for a reason. It's because they love it. And it's our job to make sure that we continue to foster that enjoyment. Dan, if you want to skip to the parent. So the next one is parent. So, you know, this is unique for me. You know, I think I look at my journey as a staff, as a professional in this organization and in different organizations, and I've evolved. I now have 2 kids myself. I have a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. I've started some of the journey with my 6-year-old boy in youth sports. And I empathize, you know, from a parent standpoint of just the fierce love that there is for your child. At the end of the day, you want what's best for them. And we as a club, we embrace that. We want you a part of this journey. We want you to support your child. You know, and I think for us, we've highlighted things that we feel can help with that, and be constructive and make sure that not only going back to what we talked about with the players saying accountability, and putting it back on them, but what different things can you do to support it? You know, obviously core values is there. You know, I think going back to the respect rule, you know, I think one thing that's really important, and it's one thing that we did want to bring up on this call, and I know it rings true for Dan, who sits on the SLISA board. I've had many conference calls and Zoom calls with league platforms across the country. There is a big shortage of referees, and it's coming to the detriment of canceling games. And why is that happening? I think most of us can figure that one out, that, you know, you have a lot of referees that put up with a lot during games. Maybe some of these referees aren't fully where they need to be yet from a development standpoint. And just like we try to develop our players, we should also support the development of the referees. And ultimately they quit. And it's not a good thing. It has caused our tournament director, Franco, to have to cancel and limit the amount of entries for tournaments. It's caused league games to be canceled. I was out at a MISA State Cup game this summer. I was coaching my 2006 boys, and during the game, there was a little commotion behind me. I turned around, I looked over, and they had stopped the game. It was a 2008 girls game. They had stopped the game, and they had removed all the spectators from the sideline. And they were not going to play the game until all the spectators were gone, because the referee abuse was so bad. And I think this is a reality. I think this is a thing that could ultimately become a real issue, where they will stop games if there's referee abuse, and games won't continue. Our games could be forfeited, or there could be punishment coming back on the club. So from our standpoint as a club, we want to do the best job that we can to make sure that we are supporting the game and making sure that we try to be a positive influence, you know, in regards to referees. What I always tell my parents is, don't expect the best. If you go in a game and think you're going to get the best calls and you're going to have the best referees, I would not have that expectation. I would expect that, you know, hopefully you come into a game, the referee does a great job, and ultimately it's on us as a coaching staff to take care of those issues. We can address those issues with refs. But I think for parents, for coaches, for players, for spectators, it's really important to just continue to be positive and try to leave the referees alone, because ultimately we want games to continue. We don't want games to stop, because we want the players to be able to play. You know, I think from a coachability side, you know, obviously we're here tonight with this Zoom to educate. We want to continue to educate our parents. We think it's really important to let you know about things that are happening at the club, things that are happening across the country, things that we can do to help you so that you can continue to support your child in this journey. And then the final piece is, I love watching you play. I heard somebody talk about it a few years back, and it really rung true to me. At the end of the day, there's nothing more that your child loves than to hear you say, I really loved watching you play. I know my child appreciates it when I say it to him. I think that is ultimately what we can do as parents, myself as a parent, Dan as a parent. I think that's a really, really big key, is be positive and really just tell your kid how much you love them, and try to be as supportive as possible. You know, I obviously appreciate all you guys do, and I thank you for all of your support and trust from the club standpoint. And so thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Dan.
Thanks, Matty. So we probably shared a fair amount there, just in terms of some oversight, some information about where we're at, where we'd like to go. We'll follow up in a couple different ways over the next few months. You'll obviously see us out in the complex, so feel free to stop us. If you do have questions, my email is dan.gargan@Lufuse Athletic. Matt's is right here on the screen, matt.miller@Lufuse Athletic. And I do encourage you guys to reach out if you have any other questions. We're not going to open it up to questions because there's a lot of people on the call, and there is, a time. You guys have already been here for 45 minutes, so appreciate your time. But we just wanted to kind of get in front of you guys where we could. Hopefully we're not on these Zooms forever, and we'll be able to get in person in the auditorium and do a little bit more over the course of this year. But we wanted to just get off on the right foot and touch base about some things that we obviously have going on, but also kind of touch base on how we'd like to progress with this year and with our club over the next few years. So 2022 is actually the 30th anniversary of the club. We're very excited about that. So that's right around the corner. We have a couple more things planned, and we'll start to lay out some information here shortly. But I think last and most important, we do really appreciate your support of the club, your inclusion in the club. And it's fun. It's been a really fun 5 years for me to be a part of where we're at, and also to kind of look at the vision in what's upcoming and see this thing really start to come together. And that's because of all of you. So thanks for the time tonight. And we look forward to seeing you out at the park. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks, everyone.